This episode is sponsored by MJ's Progress Not Perfection Meeting Center Association. We are in our meeting center where we do all these meetings for mental health and addiction. I can do this podcast anywhere. I can do this at home. I can do this in a closet. I can do this in a basement. It doesn't matter. All I need is somebody else to talk to about addiction and recovery. What I can't do from anywhere is help people with their addiction and their mental health problems. So if you can help out, we do have a Venmo, we have a Cash App, we have a PayPal, we have an address you can send a check to, and all the money that gets donated goes towards rent, goes towards keeping the lights on, and goes towards keeping the internet on. So please, if you can give $5, $10, $20, it doesn't matter. Anything you can is so appreciated. And if you are a local business, if you're a national business, whatever, and you want to be a part of what we're doing, you can reach out to me and we can talk about how you can be a sponsor. But I'll let you get back to the episode.
Welcome to the show, Ashley.
Thank you.
We met on TikTok, and so you're another. I've been meeting a lot of creators on TikTok recently, and I didn't realize the recovery community is so strong there. It's been, pretty eye-opening.
It's crazy. I didn't even go with like the vision of what I've made. I went in, I am recently starting, I started the process at the end of June to get my license back. So I was having such a hard time. The DMV was like stringing me along, wasn't telling me what I needed to do. And I was like, I need to document this because it brought me, I'm so secure in my sobriety. But I looked at my husband, I said, if somebody was like 1% less secure than me, they would probably relapse from this experience because it was so stressful. It was like, and the way that people were talking to me was so rude. And it was just like one thing after another. And I'm like, if I can get out what I did, because it says, like in the thing, it said the retraining course. Okay, fine, get that. But then it was like alcohol training program. I'm like, what is that? Like, and I tried to figure it out and I emailed the person that was handling my case. I called the DMV multiple times. DMV told me to do something that I had to pay for that wasn't it. So I did that, paid for it. It's useless. So then finally I got the answer I needed, but I just got the answer 3 weeks ago. So at the end of June is when I contacted them.
So it's been a solid 4.5 months, 5 months of going back. And the DMV, I mean, sobriety or not, throw it at, dealing with the DMV. It definitely, people drink and get high way more often when they leave there. Whether they work there, or they're going there for the day. You leave the DMV saying, I need to get fucked up. You know what I mean? Like my day is ruined.
It was so insane. And then I went and I just started making like talking videos because I got TikTok like in the beginning of the pandemic. And my friend just like sent me videos. I made like 1 or 2 videos that were really bad. And then I was like, because I'm not going to go on and like dance and do all that crazy crap. So I was like, I don't know. And then I started doing that. And in my therapy, I had been working on being able to talk really freely about like what I went through and not being ashamed. And once like I was to the point where I was over that, I was like, I have to talk about it. Like I have to tell my story because my story, like, it's kind of confusing because I didn't use AA, tried it, got ridiculed in the meeting, was like, nope, not for me. And then I did it on my own. And I did it like the AA way, laid out by Russell Brand. And it was, as much as I'm like, people think I'm just like, yes, I love that book is my favorite book. I still have it. I literally won't even give it to somebody.
I have a sponsee that we're going through the steps with his steps.
Yeah, it's the best book.
Yeah, I run a mental health meeting center and we do mental health meetings also besides AA. We do AA, we do NA, we do trauma meetings, we do LGBTQ plus meetings, we do a lot of different meetings. One of them though is a mental health check-in, and we had a regular. She was coming to the meditation meetings that we do and everything. She just recently moved away from the area because she was confident enough that they're coming to a lot of meetings with us. She is, she's a normie, right? She has problems. She was coming here for trauma and coming here for depression and anxiety, not because she's an addict. She doesn't even really drink. She has seen alcoholism in her family growing up. But she went through the steps through that book because I told her to change the word alcohol and drugs and put in there whatever made her life unmanageable. And I think it was like her aunt or some shit, you know what I mean? That was making her life unmanageable. And she went through the steps that way. And she has had a total change in her confidence and how she goes about her life. And it was just like an experiment kind of for me of like, I'm not a normie. I'll never be able to look at the steps as a normie. I look at them with the full appreciation of what they've given me today. But I don't know that scope of a normie looking at steps. So it was
Oh yeah.
interesting for me to watch her go through it. And then even I didn't want to sponsor her because man and woman to begin with, but on top of that, I wanted her just to read it herself since it was different. And she would come back with questions. Hey, with a step 4, should I do this or should I? And just like, and I was giving her suggestions like I would, and it was great, you know. And she felt good enough, and her and her fiance completely uprooted 6 hours away to try a new life somewhere else.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
And it's been really cool to see, you know, stuff like that. And but anyway, I think the steps could be used. Just take whatever. Everyone has misconceptions of the steps. Anyone who's never been through the steps already knows the steps are wrong to begin with. When they say to you that thing, they say, "Hey, admitting it's the first step." No, it's not. No, it's not to me. You know, the unmanageability part of step 1 is the most important part of step 1 that people overlook all the time. Oh, admitting no, that's the first part of the first step.
Right.
There's a semicolon that's so important there because after that it says my life was unmanageable. Because some people can drink, they can use, they can eat, they can fuck, they can do whatever, and their life isn't unmanageable. You know, but then there's people like me that anything I do, my life
Yeah.
becomes unmanageable.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, it's hard because I had drank normally for a few years. I mean, I didn't really drink, and then I like slowly started drinking, and then after like, you know, a year and a half, 2 years, it slowly like went uphill. And so it's such a different environment because I can see myself like in this normal place, and I can see myself in like this really fucked up place. And I've had people like some of my friends' mom, she was like, "Well, like I don't really think like you're addicted. Like I don't really think you're an alcoholic." Like I'm like, "Well, I don't want to find out." Like because the shit that I did was really bad. Like
And we'll get to that too. You know, I skip around. I'm not gonna rush into so what is your sober date? Like how long have you been sober for?
4/3/2019, so 2 years and 7 months.
Congrats. That is,
Thanks.
you
Thanks.
know, anybody who's made it through COVID still to this day
Sober.
sober, you know, you get an
I
extra
hadn't
chip.
even hit a year yet. In sober, I think I was sober. In COVID, I was at about 8 months.
You were
No,
about no, you
nine,
were
nine, not
yeah,
10,
10.
like 10, almost 11, I guess,
Really
because it's just
11. March
yeah,
12th was the shutdown. That was
yeah,
I quit opiates, you know, and I haven't used an opiate since April 24th, 2018. I started drinking again. You know, I had a falling out with AA at one point, and I started drinking again. Not alcoholically, but I drank for
yeah.
9 months. And so my new sober date is 2/29/20, leap day. So I know for a fact because 2 weeks later, COVID shut down everything. And that's when I was like, shit, I need meetings. And that's kind of where our
Yeah.
meeting center was born out of.
And
So
you run that by yourself, like not through somewhere. You just
my
do that
wife
by
and I,
yourself.
yeah, my
Oh,
wife
nice.
and I,
Awesome.
yeah. She has MS. She just got diagnosed with MS 2 months ago. So she hasn't been able to contribute as much as she would like to. It's only because she literally can't. You know,
Yeah.
we're still figuring out her medicine treatments, all that kind of shit. Because MS is such a fucking,
Oh,
you know, she can barely walk some days.
yeah.
So you know, she can do what she can do. She gets here. We're trying to find a rhythm. It's, you know, we have a 7-year-old. We co-parent with her
Hmm.
ex. So it's, you know, a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
But I love coming here every day. I drop him off at school, then I come here. I run an AA meeting at 9. Then I hop on some podcast or TikTok or whatever, you know, the lives. Because there's always, that's how I met you. You were doing that
Yep.
live earlier.
Yep.
So you got sober. What was going on with you March of 2019 that you were like April
Well,
2019?
so a lot of it, and a lot of people ask me, like one guy that I've had follow me since like the beginning. always says to me if my situation was different, what happened. So I got 2 DUIs pretty close to each other. I got one in I guess not that close, May of 2018, and January of 2019 was my third.
You got
So
3 in
three.
6-7 months.
Nope. So two in like the 6 7 months. The other one was like a year and a half before that. So it was a
Okay.
far distance. So I got my third, and it's mandatory jail time when you get your third. So I went to jail for 4 months, and my sober day is the day I went to jail.
Okay. So that was after your third one.
Yep.
Did you surrender to go to jail? Or did it
I
was a
did.
court
So I
case?
was on
Okay.
probation, and he was like, "Okay, it's gonna take a while." He goes, "I'm gonna give you some more time." He goes, "I'm just gonna delay the process." When I got the second one, he was like, "I'm not gonna violate you," and I was like, "All right." And then when I got my third one, he was like, "Okay, I just just let me know or whatever." And I kind of just strolled through and was able to like kind of like mentally prepare myself, if that makes sense, and was able to kind of get some stuff in order, tell a few people, and then basically I went in. I didn't know how long I was going to be there. I was still going through court at the time, so um it was crazy because I didn't know if I'd be there 6 months. I didn't know if I'd be there 8 months. I didn't know if they would let them run together, which they did. So it was just a completely different experience, and I wasn't mandated to do anything when I was done except not drink. My probation when I got out was very, like, I didn't even have to report. Like, it
Wow.
was very mild. But they had seen me a couple times, and I went through a, I guess, a treatment place to have an evaluation. And once evaluation came back, like, she doesn't need anything. And it was months after, like, I had gotten out in August. They did the evaluation in like December. So I had so much more sober time by the time I got there. So just even my way of thinking was so different at that time. And in her report, she writes, "I doubt this girl will ever drink again." And that made me feel like good because I recently just saw the report because I gave that to DMV. So
Yeah.
it was like kind of nice to see that, especially so much further away from where I was at that time.
Yeah. Now we could. So why did AA? What did you have? Because if you were going into because I had a thing with them, obviously.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Where I drank over it. And
Mhm.
I'm not blaming them. It's part of
Right.
my story. I own the fact that I drank over my resentment. And I know
Yep.
that resentment. And the reason I talk about it so much is because it's so common. It's so common that we hurt ourselves over resentments against somebody else.
Like, I really don't know, like, and I was just in like such a different place at this moment. Like, I have a husband who's also sober. He's going to be 2 years in December. So like there's such a different unit I have because I have that. I have another sober friend. So like I would know to reach out before I would do anything dumb. And for me, as soon as I think about alcohol, I flash back to everything I did. I flash back to jail. I flash back to getting arrested. I flash back to like just being embarrassed because I got myself here, and I got myself, into this addiction. And with those memories, it stops anything for me.
So now my question is, when did this all start? When it was
My
drinking
first
always your
DUI was March 2015.
so was drinking always your thing now?
Yep, I've never done any kind of drugs.
Okay, so you're what I call a real deal alcoholic. Like, alcohol was your down. You know what I mean? There's a lot of us that I'm an alcoholic, but alcohol led me to pills where I spiraled, if that makes sense. You know what I
Yep,
mean?
makes
Like,
sense.
so alcohol was a problem for me. I was drinking alcoholically, but I would say I was more of a pill addict than anything, spiraling wise.
Right.
So when did you first start getting into drinking? Was it your teenage years or were you a late bloomer?
No, I was really careful. My dad was an alcoholic when I was very little, and don't remember any of it. I was like a baby. And my mom's brother was a severe alcoholic and ended up dying from it. So I knew on both sides there was this. So I was so careful, like all the time. Like, I didn't drink before I turned 21. I just refused. Even on my 21st birthday, like, didn't get drunk. I didn't get drunk until I started my addiction.
Wow. So you really were a late bloomer. Like you knew what could have
Oh.
could you you knew what you knew what she wasn't talking to me, everybody. She was
Yeah.
talking to her dog. you you knew what could happen with alcohol, so you stayed away,
Yep.
and then you finally did drink. You took
Mm-hmm.
the peer pressure. I'm sure there was peer pressure for you to try drinking.
Yep.
I can only imagine if you're 21, 22 and still not drinking, your friends, especially if you're a college person, your friends are saying, "Ashley, come on,
Yeah.
you're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine. Just
Yep.
drink with us." Just because your mom did that, or your uncle, or your dad, or whatever, that's them. That's not you. You can drink with us. And you're how old are you when you finally? Was that what happened when you finally broke
No.
down and were like, "All right, I'll try
I
drinking."
would drink like here and there. Like my ex-husband and I would go out to dinner and have like not even a full glass of wine. Like I wouldn't finish it. At a party, I'd have like a beer. What started it was I was in the restaurant business. That was what I did as a job. And I had just gotten divorced. I was with somebody after I got separated. I dated somebody, so I didn't deal with those emotions. I just kind of like let them coast down. And
Did you
we
get
broke
married to
up.
your high school sweetheart or something? Like that's
Married
young to get
really
married.
young, yeah.
Yeah.
No, we just met regular, like normally. And it was just
Was he older?
he was. So I've
Okay,
only
okay.
dated people older than me, yeah.
Okay, because usually those are the two circumstances where a girl gets married, in my opinion, under 25.
Yeah.
Is they're never dating somebody their age. And if they are, it's because they met in high school and
Yep.
they've been together for that long, and that's why they're getting married under 25. Or the other reason is the woman meets the man, he's in his 30s and he's ready to settle and have kids.
Yep.
She's like, whatever, I want to have a family and we'll get married and start this now. And
Yep.
you get married early. So those are the
Yep.
two main reasons that I see, just from, I don't know, fucking
Yep.
talking to people. So now you get divorced because obviously it's not working. And
Yeah.
now he was drinking. Did he have, and you don't have, I'm
So
not
he
saying you're
didn't like
blaming him.
drink. He didn't
Okay.
drink. He
You know
drank
what I'm
like a
getting at.
little more than me, but like not inappropriately. He
Okay.
barely
You see
drank.
where I'm
Like,
driving. Okay.
yeah. So it didn't have like anything to do with that really. But he we go pushed everything down. That's just what I did like all my life, I feel like. And then it just like slowly came to the surface. And then once I like started, once I got like, I wouldn't even say like right away, but and it was a slow trickle. Even after that first DUI, like I drank pretty responsibly for a while. Like I wasn't even in my addiction when I got that. I just made a stupid decision. So it was just some shitty circumstances. Like I was working at this restaurant. It all cycles around me in the restaurant business. I had a very stressful job. I was a restaurant manager. So
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. And then plus that type of
stop.
industry, whenever like you get done a shift, it's like, it's known that you're all going to go to the bar together and bitch about your day together. Or you're going to go to someone's house that works there,
Mm-hmm.
usually a busboy that smokes a lot of weed. You go to
Yep.
someone's house that works there and you throw a party and you drink until 3 o'clock in the morning. You pass out on the couch. I've seen waiting. I've lived
Yeah.
waiting. I've
Yeah.
lived that life.
Yeah.
That was 18, 19. Shit, I was 16 bussing tables and getting drunk and high with people working there. So like I get that shit for like for real. So you keep saying in your addiction though. So is there a point where you see when in retrospect of your drinking going from I'm drinking to like this is a problem?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I had multiple times thought about that. Ooh, sorry. Hang on. What I just do? Okay, I've never used this before, so bear
No,
with
it's
me.
fine. Everything's still fine
Uh,
on my end. So
so I had gone from drinking like responsibly, not getting really like too buzzed too often, to like started noticing a pattern. So I started noticing a pattern so that I would like kind of back off a little bit. And I was a binge drinker. So I wouldn't drink every day. So it was like, but then when I would start drinking, it's like I wouldn't stop until I was like, all right, I'm good. Like go home. And then it was just like everything I did was destructive. Everything. I mean, I also had a friend at the time who was in like a crazy like drinking period of her life. And we were the same age. And we drank together a lot. So like that wasn't really the best situation either. And then it just like spiraled out of control where, it was more than not I was getting drunk, and then I was kind of like, all right, maybe like I have kind of a problem. And then like kind of started affecting my career. So I'm like, okay. And it still wasn't just like, I still thought I was normal, but like a part of me was like, oh, maybe I have a problem. But it was such a small part that it wasn't just like, okay, I should stop. Like, what's going on? And a lot of people didn't really know in the beginning. A lot of people didn't know in general, only really people who like were around me a decent amount of time. And then it just got worse. And after that first DUI, I literally never got my license back. I just drove. So I was also just committing crimes like constantly, but like such a minuscule amount of crimes, but still. And,
Yeah.
and I mean, I'm thankful I didn't hurt anybody myself. Like that could have completely changed the course of my life, but it's just I just didn't do responsible things.
Yeah. Yeah, you were definitely driving without a license a couple times there.
Years. Like
Yeah.
years. And it was in my mind, I was just like, oh, it's too expensive. Like it really wasn't. Like, I mean, I made good money. I was running a restaurant. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
like I wasn't making like it wasn't, so it was just, one thing after another, and then it started affecting my job, and then it was like then I like kind of tapered back a little bit because I was like, okay, I need to like not do this. And then I was like good for a couple months, and then it was just like back just down like this rabbit hole.
Yep. Now, when did you meet your husband? You're both sober. Did you guys meet in sobriety?
We were both already sober. So he was
Oh, okay.
6 months sober and I was a little over a year. I was like almost a year and a half.
Okay. And true to your fashion, you're just like, when you know, and I'll settle down quickly.
Not it didn't really work out like that. It was completely different than with my ex-husband. It just because of what we both went through, it was just a completely different environment between the two of us. Like it was such a healthy, wholesome connection of a relationship that it was insane. So we met through a mutual friend. And we had texted like the day before and or like 2 days before and trying to figure something out. And my husband was like pretty quick. He's like, hey, do you want to go for a hike on Sunday? So I was like, oh, all right, like whatever. And because my friend knew him, I absolutely trusted him. I was like, he's not gonna do anything, really crazy. So we had texted the whole day before that, like the entire day, just like really communicating with each other. And when we met, we were together for 9 hours. And it was just, like both of us like knew. It was crazy. And not at first. Like, you look back on it and you're like, oh man. So we went on a 9-mile hike where we just talked about our stories. And he was like really open and honest with me, and I was really open and honest with him. And then we went, did a couple other things. We went to lunch, and then we like sat and like a green and like just had a conversation. He brought me home and he called his family and was like, I'm gonna marry this girl. Like, this is my wife. And from that day, he's like, I just knew. And so the issue in what was happening, I lived an hour away. I don't drive. So that was getting really hectic because I would come here for 4 days. Because it's during COVID, so I wasn't working. So I would come here for 3 or 4 days and then go back home for three days and then come back. And I was getting ready. So the friend that hooked us up lived like 5 or 10 minutes from where he lived. So her and I were getting ready to kind of like merge together. And he had gone on a vacation and he had taken like crazy, like it was like 14 days or something. We were together consecutively for 14 days. And it like towards the end of it, he was like, I'm literally going to ask you to move in with me in a month. It doesn't make sense for you to move with somebody else. So we moved in with each other. And that was like a make or break it because he'd been single for 16 years. And I had been not wanting anything to do with men for like 5. And when we merged together, it was crazy because we had these people in our space and we'd never had that before. So it was like a learning curve. And we joke and we say if it was anybody else, they would have broken up.
I couldn't agree more. I have a very similar story. My wife and I met on Tinder,
Yep.
but we were an hour away, and she was a month out of. She had just left her ex-husband after 9 years a month ago at that time, and was on Tinder. You know what I mean? Because just fresh new.
Yeah.
She had to get her own apartment because narcissists are lovely.
Yeah.
So she had to get her own
Oh, yeah.
place when she left them and all that, even though they have a kid. either way, so she has her own place. She's on Tinder. I am on Tinder, not looking for a relationship because I am 11 months sober at the time. And I am strict with my program. I am not going to be serious in a relationship until I have at least a year. So one of the first things I always asked somebody when I met them on there was, what are you looking for? Because I'm going to get it out of the way. Like, I'm just looking to meet people and have fun. I'm sober. I'm still fun though. It is what it is,
Mhm.
whatever. And I was meeting
This
people.
episode is sponsored by MJ's Progress Not Perfection Meeting Center Association. We are in our meeting center where we do all these meetings for mental health and addiction. I can do this podcast anywhere. I can do this at home. I can do this in a closet. I can do this in a basement. It doesn't matter. All I need is somebody else to talk to about addiction and recovery. What I can't do from anywhere is help people with their addiction and their mental health problems. So if you can help out, we do have a Venmo, we have a Cash App, we have a PayPal, we have an address you can send a check to, and all the money that gets donated goes towards rent, goes towards keeping the lights on, and goes towards keeping the internet on. So please, if you can give $5, $10, $20, it doesn't matter. Anything you can is so appreciated. And if you are a local business, if you're a national business, whatever, and you want to be a part of what we're doing, you can reach out to me and we can talk about how you can be a sponsor. But I'll let you get back to the episode.
And then when I met her, I said, what are you looking for? She said, friends, primarily with benefits. I said, perfect. Me too. And then we talked for, I swear, we texted for 3 days straight, and then we met. And within the first hour of meeting, we said, I love you at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when I came back I went to LA for my 1 year sober anniversary. I live in Pennsylvania. I got sober in Los Angeles, and I wanted to celebrate my sobriety anniversary with those people at my rehab in LA, where my
Yeah.
sober friends were. So I flew out there, and when I came back, I proposed to her. So
That's awesome.
we had been together since. But the thing is, though, like, I was a very independent person. She was my second relationship of my life at 32 years old. Really third relationship if you count pills, because I do.
Yeah.
I count pills as my first relationship. I count my fiance that, she committed suicide in 2015. We were best friends growing up. And then, so that was my first real relationship, was her, Colleen. And that didn't even end with a breakup. That I don't really have any
Right.
exes. That ended with suicide. So, like, and then Mikey, her and I have been together. And, but yeah, I was just really adamant about, like, I don't want to be serious because I am so comfortable alone. A lot of people are not comfortable alone.
I was
And
so
I
comfortable.
am so content. My mom has said since I was a baby, she would put me in front of the TV or whatever. She wouldn't hear a peep from me for hours. When she had my brother, she was like in culture shock because my brother needed attention, wanted attention from her at all times. And I'm a 2, 3-year-old she doesn't hear a peep from for hours on end. I want to be left alone. You know what I mean? So the reason my wife and I work, and I say this all the time, is because I can be exactly who I am alone as I am with her, which is important and something that I never even took stock in when looking for potential partners, is my comfortability. I didn't even realize that I didn't like being with other people because I wasn't able to be comfortable around them being myself. And then once I met her and I found out, like, oh my God, I feel completely comfortable, like I'm alone, but I'm not. This is what I needed, and been happy as shit since. We've been together almost 3 years, and we had the same sober date. She quit drinking when I did, and we haven't had a drop since then.
Yep.
So I definitely think it's possible to fall in love quickly, especially how old were you when you met him?
32, 3. It's not been that long.
Yeah,
We've been
exactly.
together almost a year and a half.
Oh, so you're my
No.
age. Well, you're my age.
Yeah, in June it'll be 2 years. So it's not that long. We got married on our anniversary.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
We got married last November. It's only because that's when we literally picked up her divorce papers from her lawyer, and walked across the street to the courthouse and got our marriage certificate.
Yeah.
So we got married as soon as we could. My best friend got ordained by the Church of Dudism and drove up and married us in our living room.
I love it.
And it was perfect. Fucking $30 Domino's order was the cheapest wedding you can have.
Yeah.
It was my dad was very happy because he's got my brothers and my sister's weddings to deal with. He's like, yeah, I'm very happy you got married the way you did. So how is it then? I know how it is for us. How is it being in a sober relationship when you didn't get high together, but you're sober together?
It is different, but it's real. And I mean that in the best way. Like, I can be raw and honest with him, and I'm so comfortable. I have anxiety pretty bad, and he makes me so safe. Like, I feel so comfortable, so safe. So it's just literally a conversation. Like, I can tell him anything. I can tell him, and through the course, like, you have to tell certain things. It's just what happens. And every time I told him something, like, he never judged me. He never, in that, like, judgment-free zone makes me feel so safe going to somebody. So we have an open door policy. It's if either of us crave it, like, he didn't stop. Like, I feel like I was going to lose everything. Like, he wasn't at that place. He definitely was drinking a lot, but he was drinking because he was lonely. Like, that's literally what he says. Like, all his friends tell me, like, he drank because he didn't do anything. He was just, was in a relationship with his kid's mom. It didn't work out. And he was single from that time on. Like, he never got into a serious relationship. He had his 2 sons, and he was just so focused on them, and he didn't think about himself. And that's how he is just as a person. Like, he's not a selfish person. So he got himself to this point, and then he stopped, and he did not intend to stop forever. So that's like the biggest part. And that, for me, for a while, I felt a little uneasy about that, because I'm like, okay, well, like, I'm never drinking again. Like, I never. And I'm very, like, I can be around it and stuff, but I have my limits. So, like, I don't personally think I would have ever been able to be in a relationship with somebody who drank, or who could drink, if that makes sense. So, like, I like that that's how it is. And we have an open door policy. He has told me, like, if he ever thinks about drinking again, he would come to me and let me know. Obviously, if I, like, am craving it or do something like that, if anything goes on, like, I do talk to him about it. He knows how we talked about me going on social media like that, because I felt like that was a respectful thing to do, just because, like, he's my husband. I'm going to be out there in this crazy app. So it's like, I didn't want to go on there and have him be like, and in the beginning it was crazy, because when I was trying to get to the 1,000 so I could go live, I was on my phone so much, because, it's like everybody commenting. I wanted to comment back, and, like, I wanted to be so present. And it was like, he just kind of, like, looked at me and he was like, I'm right here. Like, so that was really difficult. But there's a very, like, in between. And I talk about this a lot, like, not NA beverages as, like, seltzer, NA beverages as, like, a beverage that they have made from alcohol, but removed that alcohol. And, like, and I loved wine and never got drunk off of wine. So I said to him, I'm like, I really want to try non-alcoholic wine. And I hadn't really talked to anyone else about it, especially anybody in sobriety. I was just like, I knew that the one sober friend I've had for the longest, he did drink O'Doul's when he had stopped. So, and then it just, like, tapered off in time. He, like, only drinks, like, super social settings, like, really social settings. So my husband, like, he didn't really give me his real opinion. He, like, kept asking me why. And then one day we're in the car and he goes, I'm afraid you're going to relapse. And that's all I needed for him to say. And I was like, all right, I respect you. Yep, we're good. And and then later on, I did an episode in my live where one person said, I can do it in social settings and I'm fine. And another person said, I relapsed. And that made me terrified. I
can totally see that. You know what I mean? It's almost like you're getting the taste, but not the effects. So as addicts and alcoholics, what do? We sit there and taste things and say, where the fuck are the effects?
Yeah.
Give me the good shit. I know what comes after this.
Yep. So he was just really scared, and he's like, I don't mind if you have something that's 100% alcohol removed, but that doesn't taste like alcohol. Like, there's these new things out that my friend sent me that it just has like different spices in it. So it's like turmeric, and like it's a seltzer, but there's like turmeric in it, and it's not like a removed substance. It just tastes like if you're drinking seltzer, it just has all these different flavors in there. So like something like that, he's like, "Yep, I'm fine with that." Because we drink like that. We drink so much seltzer, it's ridiculous. Like we need one of those machines.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous how much seltzer we drink, and like I'm super picky with it. So it's just, and you need to respect those boundaries. Like that's like a thing. Like he's like, "Look, this is what I think, and this is where I'm at." And like if he started drinking again, like if he decided that's what he wanted to do, I don't think he's going to, but if he did, I would just be like, just don't do it around me, and don't come home drunk. Like don't come home like that. Like because these are my limits. Like with everybody, I set these boundaries. Like I set these boundaries with my siblings. Because one of my brothers is actively an alcoholic, and the other three can drink very normally. And they ask me like before they take a sip anything, they're like, "Is it okay if I drink?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you're good."
Were you the only girl out of 4?
Yeah, I'm the oldest too.
Oh, and you're the oldest.
Oh, double wham.
Yeah. I'm the oldest of 3, but there's a mixture. It's my brother's 3 years younger, my sister's 9 years younger, and I'm the only one that's an alcoholic. You know, my brother can outdrink me even in my prime of my drinking. Because as we both know, the amount you drink isn't what makes you an alcoholic. It's why you drink that makes you an alcoholic. People get so confused by that, and they even get sometimes butthurt. You know, I've had
Yeah.
friends, I don't talk to them anymore, but early in sobriety, when I came back from rehab, say to me, "You're not an alcoholic. I can outdrink you." And I'm not an alcoholic. It's like, well, you know, it's not about that. It's not about how much we can drink. It's about why I drank.
Yeah.
You know, it literally says it in a lot of literature, in a lot, not just NA or AA. It's not what, why or how much we drank. It's why. It's not why we used or how much we used. It's why. We don't care what your connections were on the outside. We don't, you know what I mean? All that shit. That is NA. I always get them confused because I do both of them. So actually, speaking of that, so when did you try AA in your sobriety? Was it when you got out of jail, or were you going to the meetings that,
No, so in jail, it was on like a major waiting list, and it was NA, and I just they said there was a space I could finally go like 3 weeks before I was gonna leave, and I was like, "Nope, you know what? I'm good. I'll do this. I'll just figure it out when I get home." And it wasn't even on my list of things to do. Like I remember my sister-in-law, messaging me and asking me about it. I'm like, "I just don't feel it right now. Like maybe I'll go to a meeting, maybe I won't." And I did go to a meeting, and it was the first meeting I just kind of sat, observed, and I was kind of like, "All right." And then the second meeting I went to, they asked me to speak, so I spoke, and I probably left jail out of my story. I don't even remember. And the guy was like, "There's no way that you did this without AA for the last 6 months." And I'm like, and I was like 5.5 months sober or something. And then this guy just like ridiculed me. Like he just kept going on and on and on. And there's other guy in the meeting who was around my age, because all of them were much older. And I go into like the other room to like kind of just like go to the bathroom before, because I walked 45 minutes to the meeting and then walked 45 minutes home. So I was like, just kind of taking it all in. It takes me a while to process things, especially in my early addiction. I would give myself a lot of time. And he came up to me and he goes, "Whatever way you're sober is the way that's your way." And I really respected that. And I was like, "Thanks for coming in here." And he just wanted to check and make sure like I was okay. And I left, and I was like, "I'm never going back in there again. And I got to figure out how to do this on my own." And I love to read. So the next day I went to Barnes and Noble, and I was like, "All right, what am I going to do?" My roommate had got me a gift card like the Christmas before. So I was like, "All right, what am I going to do?" I went like right to the area, and I had heard about his book. And I was like, I bought his book and then Tiffany Jenkins' book. And I read them. I read Tiffany's first because it wasn't like a step work book. And then I read his book, and his book, I did the book and the podcast together. Where he was promoting the book at the time, because the book had like just came out. So he was doing both of those together. So I listened to them. So when I was in my 4 and 5 steps took the longest for me. And when I was in those steps and kind of in like that standstill time, I really listened to the podcast a lot more, because I was like, I need to like keep it going and keep myself, active in that. And I was able, his book breaks it down in such a way that you're just able to like see so many things. And I had realized a lot of things already when I was in jail. I sent like my dad an amends letter before like I even did any of the steps, and there were, certain people I had reached out to. And then when I came home, certain people contacted me and whatever. I was very like, I don't want to say isolated because that's like the wrong word. I did let certain people in, but there's certain people I did not want to talk to. And that was for myself. That was my boundary. And I'm like, until I'm ready, like I can't do it. And I did everything through that book. And then I did do recently, like I said, somebody on the live was like, I think like you sound like I definitely was like, the experience makes me really upset. The fact that nobody, like the leader of the meeting didn't say anything to this guy. Didn't come like be like, hey, like, this isn't like how this is supposed to go. Like, please come back, whatever. And it was just super judgment zone. Like they don't know what happened to me. Like they didn't know that obviously I was in jail and that's, how I got sober. Like I went to jail, like, but people don't understand. It is 1000% easier to use anything in jail than it is on the outside. 1000% easier. So I remember when I was like talking to the exit lady, she was like, okay, so you've been, sober the whole time you've been in jail, and like what's your date or whatever. So I told her, and I was like, yeah, I don't know that I really count this as 4 months. I feel like I should count like when I go home. And she's like, if you wanted to, you would have used 100%. And, and that just gave me a different kind of look at it. And it kind of changed the way I was thinking.
And there's people that have been on my show that have straight up said, like, I didn't drink or use when I was in jail because it wasn't fun for me. And then I would get out of jail and I would get high and drunk again. So, if you wanted to, you would have. And I just need to apologize for that guy, because I've seen that guy. I've seen that guy in all the meetings. Not all of them. The thing is, I don't want you to correlate that with AA. You know what I mean? You can correlate that with him and his program.
Yeah.
Because AA as a whole is an amazing thing and what it does for people. It's the people in certain groups that ruin it for people. Luckily for you, you're in a headspace that you walked out of that meeting and you're just like, I'm going to stay sober though. Let me figure this out. There's a lot of people that could have walked out of that meeting saying, fuck it, I'm not sober anyway. I might as well go get drunk. No one believes me, and they go drink over it. So, kudos to you for being able to walk out of there and say, okay, that's not for me, but I can find something that is for me, because I do think it is it's an important thing as long as it's being utilized the right way. They had a problem with me because I use cannabis. They don't like that. So, I drank over it eventually. I didn't get high with pills, luckily, but, it almost happened. So, I'm glad it didn't happen for you. So what are you have a new podcast coming out soon. That's the other thing I want to talk to you about.
Yeah. So, I've been thinking about doing this for a while. So the whole reason why I actually wanted to go live was I was under the impression I couldn't just start one by myself. I was like, okay, so I want to write a book, so I'm going to do that. And then when I write the book, I'm going to get this following, and then I'll be able to, like, somebody will want me to do a podcast. Like, I didn't have enough information about it. And then a couple people were like, you can totally do it by yourself. Like this one girl, she's on Instagram. I follow her and I communicate a lot. And she was like, I literally did it by myself on Spotify. Like, you don't need anybody to do it. And with my lives, it gets frustrating because like if I have like a specific topic, people pop in and out. So you'll start talking, and then you'll get to a point where like I have to repeat myself because it's like, okay, these new people are coming in wondering what am I talking about. So I had asked everybody in one of the ones that I had like a lot of people in, and they were like, I think you should do a podcast. Like, we would definitely enjoy it. And I think it would be easier for me to talk about certain things. I don't just talk about my sobriety. I mean, I talk about things I had to do once I was in sobriety, like mental health. Like, I have anxiety really bad, like boundaries that I had to set in order, and I still have to set them, triggers that I didn't even know I had, and that can happen with like anybody. I have so many people that follow me and communicate with me that are normal people. Like,
Yeah.
and that's the crazy part about it, is they don't even have, or like one woman, like her son is, you know, he's recovering. So like she gets so much from me, like from a different perspective inside. But also people are just like so proud, like, oh wow, she's been sober a really long time and she did it on her own. Like, and I don't, if somebody contacted me and was like, I can't stop, I would be like, you need to go to a meeting right now. That is what I tell them. And people get so confused because they're like, but you didn't do meetings. I said, just because what happened to me put me on a different path doesn't mean that like I don't want, I'm going to tell somebody, no, that's crap, don't do that. I don't think that. I
Yeah.
did. Those steps in Russell Brand's book are from the program he did.
Yeah.
Like that's the point. That's the point. And I tell people, I 100% think everybody who's in sobriety has to do the steps. At some point in time, they have to. And somebody was like on TikTok, like promoting, they didn't do AA, didn't do the steps, just stopped, and they're fine, and they're all these other things. And it's like, okay, if you think so, but it's like you need
Yeah,
to do the work.
I don't know if you saw my eye roll. Like,
Yeah.
like drugs and alcohol were not our problem, and as soon as, we can look back at our experiences with them, we can, with an honest look, with honest eyes, and not just tell ourselves what we want to fucking hear. When you look back at your using and drinking, your problem wasn't your using and your drinking. It was why you were using and why you were drinking. You were using them as solutions to real life problems that are still going to exist with or without alcohol. Now, you can be a miserable son of a bitch and be sober and abstinent. I'll call it abstinent. I won't even call it sober. If you can be abstinent from drugs, you can be abstinent from alcohol and deal with real life shit. But you're going to be miserable unless you work the steps and find ways to be able to process the real life stuff that's still going to happen.
So I call that emotional recovery, because I physically hear people and like can see people like in different situations where they don't drink, but they're not emotionally sober. They didn't. There is a why, and I ask a series of questions to people when they like. A lot of people contact me about emotional recovery, and and I ask a series of questions. I'm not like, why did you drink? Because somebody's gonna be like, I liked it. So I'm just like, okay. And I ask like just pinpoint questions, because every person I've talked to has like, and it's everything is different, and every experience is different. Somebody has a traumatic experience, and somebody doesn't know how to, in a healthy way, cope. And those two things together is like pretty much kind of where my sobriety, like how I became addicted and why I liked the high from drinking.
Yep.
And that's just what I chose. I didn't choose to go down another path for my own personal reasons. Like, I mean, I barely even take medication. So it's just that was what was easy for me. And once I knew I have a very active mind, and once I was like, ooh, I'm not thinking right now. Like, oh, this is great. And I had a stressful job. So I'm like, all I wanted to do was like not think. And it pushed down everything else. But I also didn't ever tell anybody like how I actually felt. So when I would drink, whoever I was mad at, if they even attempted to reach out to me, it would be like a really bad experience. And it was just because those people were crossing so many boundaries with me, but I didn't, in a healthy way, know how to set them. So it was just like this back and forth, and it was just a really bad thing. Like, I knew what I was doing was wrong. I knew I should have gotten my license back, and I knew I shouldn't get in a car and drink and drive. And I like go back with myself, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if like I did just get my license back and put that breathalyzer in my car, what would have happened? But I didn't start healing until I became sober.
Yep. And that's, there's people that come into meetings all the time and they'll be 9 months without a drink, but they still haven't hit their bottom yet, in my opinion. In my opinion, because we all have different opinions in this, and that's the point. My opinion is we all have the same bottom. And our bottom is the day that we surrender to some kind of program, some kind of different way to do this shit. Your bottom could have been, oh no, I got arrested. That was my bottom. I went to jail, JD. That was my bottom. It's like, no, that was a speed bump that got you
That
to your
wasn't my bottom.
You
People
know,
ask me that. People ask me that all the time when they hear my story. They're like, that must have been your bottom. And I'm like, nope,
no,
that wasn't it. Because I kept getting arrested like over and over. Like, I knew I was going to go to jail eventually. Like,
yeah.
I'm not that stealthy. Like, I can't, get through this without that.
The bottom is literally that. once you hit that, there's no more going down, right? So to me, theoretically, the only bottom is when we start climbing back up again. That's when you're really at your bottom, is when you start climbing up and it's not going down anymore. And that elevator stopped going down for me the day that I said, "Hey, will you be my sponsor? Will
Mhm.
you help me through the steps? I don't know what I'm doing." That was me not knowing shit and asking for help because I wanted to do things differently. That was my bottom. I was 3 weeks sober, 2, 3 weeks sober. So just, you can be, like I could pass a drug test. I was sober, but I wasn't emotionally starting being sober until I started working on myself and figured,
Mhm.
like you said, the drinking thing. If you were to ask me in my drinking, why do you drink? I'm like, because I like it. I like the taste and I like the way it makes me feel. But really, in retrospect, when I did look back at my using and my drinking, the whys, the wheres, the hows, all that, I started drinking alcoholically at 12 years old. And it was, 11, I had my first drink. 12, somebody I knew died. It was the first person I knew in my life that died. He was hit by a car. And that caused me, in my looking back, I literally said to my best friend, we could drink and we're going to feel better, man.
Mhm.
Because it was a learned behavior, that I taught myself from my first experience. So really, and then I started looking back more. It's like, well, you know what? Every time I had a bad day, I would say that I'm drinking because my day was bad. Or if I had a good day, I would say I'm drinking because my day was good. I always found a reason to drink and have a reason to drink. And that's probably not a normal thing.
Nope.
But it wasn't, I didn't see it then. I saw it looking back. And I think that the alcohol itself can be really tricky when looking back on it, when looking back on your history with drinking and trying to pinpoint certain things. It's like, was that for fun, or trying to
Yep.
be was I trying to harm myself? It's a lot easier to say, yeah, you shoot dope every day, 4 times a day. You have a fucking problem,
Mhm.
because you're putting needles in you. But you can drink four beers a day. You can drink 4 bottles of wine a day. You can drink all this, and then you're just cool because you can drink a lot.
Mhm.
It's not. It's not cool. It's not
No.
attractive. Now, the other thing is too, we're coming into the holidays now, and the rates spike like a third, 33%, from Thanksgiving to New Year's for relapses. And that's relapses that are reported, not relapses like people that are relapsing not saying shit about it.
Right.
So really that number is probably higher, let's be real. So, how do you and your husband, get through the holidays when it's such a, like, an acceptable thing to be like, oh, Thanksgiving, here's the drinks, all out on the table. Everyone's drinking wine, and you got the, cheers and all that shit. Christmas, New Year's, like,
Mhm.
what do you do do you have something in your mind? Like, for me, it's a mindset. I just got to be
Mhm.
able to, like, I'm a comedian. I laugh at everybody. I find ways to make it funny to watch drunks now because it's the only way I can make it more and more unappealing for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If I'm laughing at a bunch of drunks all night, I'll never want to be the drunk that gets laughed at again. So, and my nickname was Mess in high school. So, like, I've been laughed at,
Yeah.
So, what do you guys do to be able to, like, go and just do the fucking holidays, but
Yeah,
sober?
so it's definitely a mindset for both of us, but we both are comfortable around it, and it's mine is just because I was that's what I did as a job. Like, I didn't really have a choice, and I needed to be around it, and once I started my emotional recovery, I haven't craved it since. Do I think about it? Yeah. But when I think about it, I also think about the shit I did, and that just shuts me off. So for us, we have a different dynamic because like my family drinks. Three of my brothers can drink very well. Don't get like sloppy, don't get crazy. I put a boundary on all of them. They know that the second that they go crazy, I'm out. And that's one thing my husband and I both do. When we're at that point, we look at each other and we're like, okay, we got to go.
When the beer
And
pong's
so,
being taken out and the flip cup's being taken out, you're like,
yeah, yeah,
I can't be part of it. They're like, come on, put water in your cup and play
yeah,
flip cup. Nope, I can't even. they'll try and they're being innocent. They don't know. Like my
Yeah.
sister, and brother, like friendsgivings and all that kind of shit. Because that's what happens. You get into these social, things where it's like, oh well, they're offering me just my beer pong with water or flip cup with water. It's fine, and it's not. It's the behavior. It's you start doing it, and then what happens to the cup? It gets mixed in with the beer, and you get a little bit of a taste on your.
Oh,
It's not
no.
and I haven't even done it. It's just something I've feared of. The sensation of craving is so real to me that it's a taste thing, and once you taste it, I can be off, very easily. I've seen it happen with myself with drinking before. That's why I drank a bottle of Jack that caused me to want to quit again,
Yep.
because it started out innocent again. The first time I drank again when I relapsed was I bought a 6-pack and I poured 2 out and I drank the other 4, out of spite of AA saying I would never be able to throw out a drink. I have to finish them all. So I would spitefully pour some out. And then eventually, by the time February rolls around 9 months later, I drank a whole bottle of Jack in one night. That was never something I wanted to do in my drinking normally phase. So as soon as that happened, I basically had a bunch of choices. It was either continue drinking to take away the hangover, sit with the hangover and never drink again, or go and buy drugs and take the hangover away within a minute. I chose to never drink again.
Yeah.
And look, I was not, because that's how I got rid of hangovers before, was get high, you know. And I think knowing your boundaries is so important going into the holidays, knowing the things you can and can't do, the
Mhm.
places you can and can't go. It's important to be self-aware and to be honest with yourself. Like when your subconscious talks to you when you're at a holiday party, probably listen to it,
Yeah. And
because
we have, and like my husband, he has a whole group of friends that still drink. And he's like, I can be around it. He won't go in the liquor store. Cannot go inside a liquor store. Because he's like, he went inside. Like for me, I think it was like a mix. For him, that's the only way he would get drunk. For me, it was okay. I was like really socially into it at first. And then I had started to kind of do it at home. So it was, but I more drank outside of home. And so for him, it's just like a different situation. Last year, he was bringing his son on New Year's Eve to go like get alcohol because his son drinks and he was going to make like this thing for his friends. And like his son just like totally like spaced on it. He was like, "Oh, Dad, aren't you gonna come in?" And he's like, "I ain't going in there." Nope. And he said to me, he goes, "I can't go in there. Like I can't." And so and knowing those limits are really powerful. I can go into a liquor store no problem. I can go behind a bar no problem. I can be a bartender no problem. Now it's less appealing now that I've been out of it for such a long period of time. It's now I was like, what was I thinking?
yeah,
Like I think about
yeah,
like, and also, I mean, I got a felony. Like I tried to get a normal job and couldn't. So it was like that was the only thing I could do. And you just like I don't recommend that. A lot of people don't. My family thought I was nuts. They were like, "There's no way you shouldn't work in a restaurant. Like, what are you doing?" And it was fine for me. Like it didn't bother me at all because I did the emotional stuff.
yeah,
So by the time I got in there, I was on a different level and
yeah,
it was just a different playing field. But I mean, I definitely don't recommend it. But my husband's family literally doesn't drink.
yeah. I wouldn't even
So,
go. I wouldn't even go into the comedy clubs again until I had 9 months sober.
mhm.
You know what I mean? I didn't want to even do stand up again until I had 9 months sober. I practiced stand up, talking at podiums and AA meetings, making people laugh that way. But I wasn't going to go into a club and do stand up until I literally on my 9 month, sober anniversary. I went to court that morning for being arrested in addiction, and then I went straight from court an hour and a half to the comedy club to perform that night with my 9 month chip that I picked up that morning. So, but it was completely different being there sober the first time and being in that environment again the first time where I said to myself, I am glad that I waited 9 months. Not that I think it would have triggered me to drink earlier, but I think it could have triggered me to get high,
Yeah.
and it's not like I was buying drugs at the club. I wasn't even doing drugs with anybody at the club. but I would get high in my car before I would go in there. I would sniff pills before I walked in. I would go into the bathroom and sniff pills, you know. So it still was a kind of a trigger in place just to being in general. Right now I'm in the planning of starting the comedy club where I live, which is nowhere near where I used to get high. So it would be
Yeah.
a and the comedy club, if I was to do it, it's not going to be alcohol consumption. I would allow cannabis consumption. That's it.
Yeah.
Just because I don't want to deal with a bunch of fucking alcoholics and a bunch
Yeah.
of drinkers when I'm sober.
Yeah.
So
No way.
like I'm not gonna deal with and we're in a college town, so like I'm not gonna deal with a bunch of drunk college kids, and I'm not drunk. No way. I'll end up drinking over that shit. What state are you? Can I ask what state you're in? Because good.
Sure. We live in Connecticut.
Okay, now do you guys have like in Jersey where I'm from, there's not beer inside convenience stores or gas stations,
So there's
but
no beer inside that. They have put some things inside the grocery stores for certain times, but that's it. They've not really gotten to a place where they're inside like everywhere. Like
is that yeah, okay.
I went to New Hampshire this past weekend and literally was in a grocery store that had like there was just alcohol like down all these aisles, and I was like, oh man, I wasn't prepared for this. Like
Yeah,
I didn't know this was gonna be in here.
I was in my Snap history. It popped up the other day. I was in Chicago a few years ago, and I was in a CVS that had Jack Daniels on an end cap in CVS.
Yeah.
In Chicago. I'm like, what the fuck? And I remember in Massachusetts when I lived there. I used to live up in Plymouth for a while. I lived in New Bedford. I lived in Plymouth. I lived all around South Shore. Um, and you could buy beer and wine at a gas station, but you couldn't buy liquor. You had to go to they call it the package store. But in North Carolina, when I lived there, because I kept moving with my addiction, when I lived in North Carolina, you would go to the ABC for liquor, or for beer and wine, you had to go to a grocery store or the gas station. So like every state has like,
It's
I
so
go,
different.
I see the Sheets, that's like our biggest convenience store around us, and I go for in there for cigarettes or grab milk or some shit, and all I see is that long,
Yeah.
like walk-in refrigerator of like beers, and it's not triggered me one time though to like want to
Yeah.
drink. I've been triggered once in the last year, and it was watching the TV show Dope Sick. That
I've been recently watching that.
okay, so I was only, and I think it's important in a relationship when you're both sober to call out your triggers as soon as they happen. Do not let them sit in your head. That is where triggers are most dangerous. Um, Triggers need to be let go of so you can fucking talk about it, or else it's not good for you. Um, how far are you in the show?
I got to the episode where they were giving the doctor the option. They gave them him a prescription for opiates. So I'm letting a few more episodes that kind of pile up because it's like released 1 week at a time, so it takes like a bit
The
to.
finale's this Wednesday.
Oh, perfect. So maybe I will start watching it and catch up.
Yeah. Well,
My
all I'll
husband and I were
say
watching it.
is, yeah, all I'll say then, I won't give anything away, is somebody sniffs a pill off the coffee table at one point. And when they sniff it off the coffee table, the way that they kind of sit back was really heavy.
Mhm.
And I felt it, and I was laying there in bed, and I went, oh, there it is. And Mikey's like, what do you, I'm like, that was a huge trigger. I was like, that was a huge trigger. Holy shit. Like, I had to pause it for a second, and I said to her, I know that feeling all too well. The most common thing that I would do would be sniff off a coffee table and fall back into a comfortable couch. I know that feeling more than almost anything, and that is extremely triggering. And she's like, do you want to get high? And I was like, no. And I think it's because I said it out loud.
Yeah.
I think it's because I told you what it was doing to me
Right.
and how and the why, and that made it real. And I have no urge to get high because I know where it'll take me. But if I didn't say shit to her and I was watching that alone, our disease can get the best of us. I can be like, I wonder who would mail me pills.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And that's what happens with this. And if we're not careful, I mean, it's taken pills are dangerous, man. Dax Shepard.
Yep.
Talk about somebody with amazing sobriety. I mean, the dude, talk about podcast presence.
Yep.
I
His
mean,
podcast is awesome.
like, I love Armchair. You know what I mean? I love his podcast. And last September, when he was like, hey, 17 years sober, relapsed,
Mhm.
Starting over. That was extremely emotional, but I get it, and he's somebody who's like Mr. Program and Mr. Talk about it and get it out there. But you notice when he relapsed, he even said it like, I wasn't talking.
Yep.
I stopped talking about it. I stopped talking about the things that were getting in my mind. And that's what happens. You have to talk about this shit because, the cliche that you never heard in the rooms is our disease is out in the parking lot doing push-ups waiting for us. And it really is. Especially I think that this the counting days is helpful, but it's extremely hurtful.
I agree with that.
Because say I relapse and I did technically with drinking, right? If I had already had a problem with counting days to begin with. I had already had this thought in my mind before I relapsed. So luckily that awareness helped me to not completely spiral, but I see it all the time when people they have a small relapse, a blip, it's nothing. They barely even drank, but it was a relapse. Now that their day is at zero, they say, "Okay, before I come back to the rooms and go to day one again, I'm going to go get a high real quick with my drug of choice," and what that
Yep.
was. And then a year later, they might
Yeah.
overdose 4 times and finally make it back to their rooms because they're court ordered. And if it was a thing of where I said to you, hey man, that one day is going to be nothing in 7 years, where you're going to have 10 years sobriety because with one day of fucking up.
Right.
And you're gonna look back at that day and say, that was nothing. I just had a rough day, and it is what it is. Because look at my last 10 years. I've had one day where I drank in 10 years. And when you can have that kind of mindset looking into it, you can feel a lot better. I had that mindset about my 9 months. Where I can look back and say I've been in recovery for 3.5 years, and I'm clean and sober for 20 months because I did drink, but not alcoholically, and I didn't lose anything in that time. And what I did gain was more of an appreciation for why I need to quit drinking. It takes what it takes. So I'm glad you're able to sit down and chat. And,
Yes,
I
absolutely.
will put all your links in the description of the
Awesome.
episode so people will be able to go to your TikTok.
Thank you so much. This was really
So,
fun. I enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
You too.
All right,
Bye.
bye-bye.